You've been told to stop overthinking. You've been told to get out of your head. You've been told you make things too complicated. And the strange part is, you tried. You really tried. But it never worked. And you thought that was proof that something was wrong with you. But what if the reason it never worked is that overthinking was never the problem? What if you don't think too much? What if you just see too much? And what if there's a difference? A painful one. In this video, I'm going to show you what's actually happening inside your mind, a mechanism that Carl Jung understood decades ago, and 4 distinct types of this pattern, each one carrying a different wound. Stay with me. If you're a deep intuitive, an INFJ, INFP, INTJ, or INTP, then you already know what I'm about to describe. You've lived it your entire life, and you've probably spent most of that life believing something was wrong with you because of it. Overthinking means your mind spins without reason. It means you create problems that don't exist. It means something is wrong with your processing. But that's not what's happening to you. What's happening to you is that you walk into a room and you feel the tension before anyone speaks. You see the micro-expression that crosses someone's face for half a second. You hear what they don't say. You notice the pattern that everyone else misses. And then your mind does what any mind would do when it receives that much information. It tries to make sense of it. That's not overthinking. That's your mind doing exactly what it was designed to do. The problem is not your processing. The problem is your perception. You take in more. You register what others filter out. You see layers where others see surfaces. And this is not a new discovery. Carl Jung understood this almost a century ago. He defined intuition not as a way of thinking, but as a way of perceiving. His exact words, "Intuition is perception via the unconscious. Not analysis, not reasoning, perception. Your mind is not spinning in circles. It is receiving information that others simply don't pick up. Information that arrives not through logic, but through a deeper channel, one that bypasses the conscious mind entirely." And Jung went even further. He said, "Intuition does not denote something contrary to reason, but something outside of the province of reason." Listen to that again. Outside the province of reason. That means when people tell you to just think rationally or stop reading into things, they're asking you to use a tool that was never designed for what you do. They're asking a radar system to stop detecting signals. It can't. That's what it is. And the cruel irony is this. The world looks at you struggling to carry all of that and says, you think too much. As if the weight is something you invented. As if you chose to see what you see. You didn't choose it. You never could have. This is how you're built. Your mind doesn't create problems. It detects them early, clearly. Sometimes years before anyone else catches up. And that's the loneliest part. Not the seeing alone. But here's something you might not know yet. This capacity, this ability to see what others miss, it doesn't look the same in every deep intuitive. There are at least 4 distinct types, 4 different ways this depth expresses itself. And each one carries its own specific weight, its own specific wound. See if you recognize yourself in one of them. Type 1. The Oracle. The first type sees what's coming. Not in some mystical way, in a very real, very human way. They read people the way a surgeon reads a scan. They see the fracture before the bone breaks. You know the moment. You meet someone and within minutes something in you whispers, this person is going to hurt you. Not because of anything they say, not because of anything obvious, but because you catch something. A slight inconsistency between their words and their eyes. A warmth that feels performed. A question they don't ask that they should. And you're right. You're almost always right. But here is what nobody tells you about this type. The pain isn't in seeing the betrayal. The pain is in the waiting. Because you see it coming, but you can't prove it. You can't explain it. You can't say, I know this will end badly, without sounding paranoid. So you stay, and you watch it unfold exactly as you know it will. And when it finally happens, the people around you say, no one could have seen that coming. But you did. You saw it the first day. This type doesn't overthink relationships. They grieve them before they end. They carry the weight of endings that haven't arrived yet. And the world calls that anxiety. But it's not anxiety. It's clarity arriving too early for anyone else to believe it. Type 2. The Ghost. The second type sees what could be. They don't look at the world and see what is. They see what's missing. The potential that gets abandoned. The version of things that should exist but doesn't. The beauty that almost happens. This is the type who walks through life feeling a strange kind of homesickness for a place they've never been. because they can see it, they can feel it. A better version of this relationship, a truer version of this job, a more honest version of this conversation. It's right there, almost touchable, but nobody else seems to be reaching for it. And so they live in the gap, that space between what is and what could be, and that gap is where their pain lives. Not because they're idealists, not because they're naive, but because their perception won't let them unsee the possibility. People tell this type to be realistic, to lower their expectations, to accept things as they are, but that advice misunderstands the problem completely. They don't have high expectations, they have high perception. They see the version of reality that nobody else is building, and they can't understand why no one else is trying. This type doesn't overthink possibilities. They mourn them every day, quietly. Type 3, the architect. The third type sees the flaw, not because they're negative, not because they're critical, but because their mind is wired to scan for structural integrity. They look at a plan and they don't see what could go right. They see every point where it will break. You know this feeling. Someone presents an idea and everyone around the table is excited. They're nodding. They're already moving forward. And you're sitting there with a knot in your stomach because you can see it. The gap in the logic. The assumption nobody tested. The dependency that will collapse in month 3. And if you say something, they call you negative. If you stay quiet, you watch it fail exactly as you predicted. Either way, you lose. This is the type the world misreads the most, because their sharpness looks like coldness, their precision looks like judgment. But underneath that exterior is someone who genuinely cannot stop caring about how things should work. They don't criticize because they enjoy it. They criticize because they can see the version that would actually hold together, and it frustrates them that no one else seems interested in building it. This type doesn't overthink plans. They see collapse before it arrives, and then they carry the impossible choice between being honest and being liked, every single time. Type 4, the decoder. The fourth type sees the hidden pattern. Their mind doesn't stop at the surface of anything. It takes things apart, automatically, involuntarily. Concepts, systems, conversations, even jokes. Everything gets disassembled into its components, examined, and then reassembled from a different angle. This is the type who asks the question nobody thought to ask, who finds the connection between two things that seemed completely unrelated, who sees the thread running through 10 different conversations that nobody else noticed were connected. And it sounds like a gift until you realize you can't turn it off. Because this type doesn't just decode the interesting things, they decode everything. The small talk at dinner, the structure of a song on the radio, the reason a friend phrased something in a slightly unusual way. Their mind is always running, always pulling at threads. And most of the time, nobody asks them to. The loneliness of this type is particular. It's not that people don't understand them. It's that people don't understand why they care about what they care about. Why does that matter? Is the sentence that has followed them their whole life. And the honest answer, the one they've stopped giving, is, I don't know. My mind just won't leave it alone. This type doesn't overthink problems. They see connections that nobody requested, and they carry the weight of understanding things that have no audience. 4 types. 4 different ways of seeing too much. Now I want to know, which one are you? Write it in the comments. Just one word: oracle, ghost, architect, decoder. And be honest. Not which one sounds the best, but which one keeps you up at night. Because the core truth is the same for all 4. You were never broken. Your mind was never the problem. The problem was that you were given a depth of perception that the world was not built to accommodate. And so you learned to call it overthinking. Because that was the only word anyone ever gave you. Because no one ever sat you down and said, you don't think too much, but you see things that others can't. And that's why it's heavy. I'm telling you now, that weight you carry is not dysfunction. It's depth. And the fact that it's exhausting doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means something is rare about you. Something that the world needs, but doesn't yet know how to honor. You didn't overthink. You never did. Not once. You saw too much. And you still do. Stop apologizing for your mind. It was never the problem. It was always the instrument. If this is the first time you felt someone describe your mind without making it sound like a disorder, then you're in the right place. This channel exists for deep intuitives, for the minds that the world calls too much. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And if this video made you feel something real, hit the like button. It helps other deep intuitives find this channel. and they need to hear this too. I also write long-form essays that go places a YouTube video can't. Deeper, more personal, more uncomfortable in the best way. If you want that kind of depth, the link to my Substack, The Hidden Chamber, is in the description. That's where the real inner work lives. Thanks for watching, Deep Mind.